Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Nissan Sustainability Seminar 2023 Circular Economy. My name is Ohara with Global Communications of Nissan Motor Corporation. I have the pleasure of serving as your MC today. Today's seminar is divided into two parts, beginning with presentation, then panel discussion. First, we'll be inviting Chief Sustainability Officer of Nissan Motor Corporation, Mr. Joji Tagawa, to explain Nissan's initiatives in the field of environment. Then, we'll be inviting experts to take part in a panel discussion entitled Accelerating Toward a Circular Economy, from Idea to Action. Then, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Tagawa. Mr. Tagawa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone, for joining Nissan's annual sustainability seminar. I'm Nissan's Chief Sustainability Officer, Joji Tagawa. For our third annual session, we will have two panel discussions, each with a different theme. The first is circular economy, and the second is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Before we begin our first panel discussion on circular economy, I would like to introduce Nissan's initiatives for sustainability and our plans for the future. This year, the world has encountered numerous weather anomalies such as record-breaking high temperatures, extreme heat waves in regions never experienced before, and recurring wildfires. You have all, no doubt, felt this shift and change in environment. As United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres recently summarized on the 27th of July, the era of global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived. There is growing evidence to suggest that 2023 could be the hottest year for Asia, Europe, and North America on record. Climate change will affect us significantly, not only through its impact on the economy, such as rising food and energy prices, but by way of effects on individual health. We live in a world that requires immediate transformative actions to steer us toward achieving a more sustainable way of life. To address this pressing crisis, we must all contribute to the solution. As a business person living in today's world, I feel responsible for the world we'll leave behind to the next generation and also the generations that follow. So, when I became CSO, I took on a personal mission to fulfill this responsibility. Motivated by our corporate purpose, driving innovation to enrich people's lives, Nissan has been putting sustainability at the heart of everything we do to ensure a cleaner, safer, and more inclusive world for all. This sustainability seminar is a part of that initiative. We want to discuss how we can achieve sustainability with experts and business leaders who are embarking on industry-leading initiatives. The panel will share knowledge and experience that will inform what we can do today and how we can plan for a more sustainable future. We accelerated our sustainability initiatives in 2018 with the Nissan Sustainability 2022 Plan, a 5-year strategy that identified our targets in each aspect of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Since then, we have reduced CO2 emission from new cars by 41.2% compared to the fiscal year 2000, expanded introduction of renewable energy such as photovoltaic and wind power generation, and increased the proportion of renewable energy consumption to 11.9% at our production plants. Since introducing the Nissan Leaf in December 2010, Nissan's global global sales of electric vehicles have surpassed 1 million units. Furthermore, Nissan positions human rights as one of its most important material issues. Nissan conducts human rights assessments as part of our due diligence and when evaluating Nissan and our partners globally. In addition, Nissan has consistently strengthened our initiatives for sustainability in various fields and have made steady progress. Last year, we undertook a materiality assessment for the field of ESG, identifying 21 items of materiality Nissan should prioritize and act on. Particularly to tackle climate change, we are making electrification of our vehicles a top priority. In our long-term vision, Nissan Ambition 2030, we have announced that we will introduce 27 new electrified models, including 19 new EVs. As we promote wider use of EVs, Nissan has partnered with 4R Energy to establish a system to recycle, resell, refabricate, and reuse EV batteries. Currently, the batteries taken out from Nissan Leaf are reused in various scenarios, such as an emergency power source for railway crossings of East Japan Railway Company and power source for automated guided vehicles in factories. We will further promote this circular system to greatly contribute to enhancing the use of renewable energy and reducing resource dependency. Nissan has the goal to achieve carbon neutrality across the life cycle of its products by 2050. To reach net zero emissions, we need to think about our manufacturing processes, material resources, and how vehicles are being used. As an example of reducing CO2 emissions of a product's life cycle during manufacturing, from January this year, we've been using low CO2 steel and green aluminum from Kobe Steel for Nissan models. With steel and aluminum taking up a significant percent of a vehicle's materials, the use of these materials is an effective way to reduce CO2 emissions during manufacturing. In addition, another important factor is the circular economy. Rather than procuring new resources by spending energy, we intend to increase the value of resources and expand the utilization of products. As an example of applying circular economy principles, a closed-loop recycling system for aluminum parts has been implemented in the following plants: Nissan Motor Kyushu, Smyrna in North America, and Sunderland in UK, where X-Trail, Rogue, and Qashqai are produced. This system recycles aluminum scraps to create new alloy sheets for use in new vehicles. Aluminum recycling helps save more than 90% of energy needed to create a comparable amount from raw materials. By expanding the use of recycled materials, we plan to reduce the dependence on newly extracted resources and create synergy with climate measures. These initiatives are also introduced in the ESG Databook 2023, which was released at the end of July. We also plan to publish Nissan's first integrated report by the end of this fiscal year. We will continue to utilize these tools with high transparency to disclose the status and results of our initiatives to our stakeholders in a timely manner. Nissan plans to announce a new mid-term management plan this year, and the basis of this plan would be the new sustainability strategy Nissan is currently formulating. We believe that this new strategy is very important in realizing our long-term vision, Nissan Ambition 2030, and will be announced at an appropriate timing. This year, Nissan will celebrate our 90th anniversary. Since being founded in 1933, Nissan has valued its spirit, do what others don't dare to do. We were among the first in the automotive industry to commercialize lithium-ion batteries and pioneered the era of mass-produced EVs by installing them on the Nissan Leaf. Currently, we are developing all-solid-state batteries, which will be a game changer for EVs. We are also promoting cutting-edge efforts to become carbon neutral at our production plants. However, not everything can be achieved by Nissan alone. We want to create a sustainable future together with our various partners across industries. For today's panel discussion, we have gathered panelists with extensive expertise and a wealth of experience from a wide range of industries. I will also be participating as a panelist, and I cannot be more excited about our upcoming discussions. So without further ado, let us begin the conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tagawa, for that presentation. We'd now like to go on to the panel discussion. Allow me first to introduce each of the panelists one by one. Ms. Takako Sato, Circular Economy Expert, ESG Strategy Division of RICO. Mr. Robert Metzke, Head Chief Staff Innovation and Strategy, Head of Sustainability at Royal Philips. Ms. Pia Heidemark-Cook, Senior Advisor at Teneo. And from Nissan Motor Company, Mr. Joji Tagawa. And our moderator will be Mr. Keisuke Hanyuda, who is the Managing Director and CEO of ALS Consulting Group. I would like to hand over to Mr. Hanyuda. Mr. Hanyuda, please.
Hello, everyone. We will now have a panel discussion on the theme Accelerating Toward a Circular Economy from Idea to Action. I hope you enjoy. Again, to introduce myself, I am the Managing Director and CEO of ALS Consulting. My name is Hanyuda Keisuke, and I'll be serving as your MC. I'm a business consultant. I'm also an advisor to the government. I'm also involved in NPO, NGO activities, and from various positions, I'm engaged in sustainability society building. The theme today is circular economy. The society has been based on mass production, mass consumption, and mass disposal so far. In the area of linear economy, there was too much load on the resource and environment, and we became concerned that we will go beyond the planetary boundary. The linear economy is a model that eats up resources, and therefore it also undermines the potential economic growth. But actually, we knew about it. Human society knew about it. It's not something new, and yet we were unable to get rid of such habits. But with progress in digital technology, we finally are able to talk about the specifics of the new socio-economic system, finally. And much attention is being paid to circular economy, which is the theme of today's panel discussion. We have 4 wonderful panelists who are pioneers in this area. They will give us tips on the importance of implementing circular economy. They've been front runners, and therefore they probably face difficulties. So those are some of the questions I wish to ask them. We have a truly heavy-weighted panel, so let's ask them to once again self-introduce themselves. Could you mention your name and how you are currently involved in sustainability? So, in the order that you were introduced by the MC, let's start from Ms. Sato of RICO. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sato from RICO. Thank you for your kind invitation to take part in this wonderful seminar today. I'm very grateful for the invitation. I'm with RICO, and I'm with ESG Strategy Division. I'm with the ESG Center. So today, have brought with me a slide about our ESG Center. So allow me to explain based on this slide. Now, ESG Center is there to promote global sustainability activities throughout the RICO Group on a global scale. So we develop promote sustainability management strategies. We also set ESG targets, and we also manage the progress. And we also promote various activities at different business units. And also we disclose ESG-related information. We also gain outside assessment. And also we carry out employee training. And also we also are responsible for CSR promotion as well. Now, my title today is Circular Economy Expert. I'm an expert, so I'm responsible for promoting circular economy in that capacity. I'm most focused on the following. It is important that we develop environmentally friendly products. That is very important for us. So we need to identify the needs and the requirements of our customers. We also need to have advanced views of the regulatory requirement so that this can translate into promotion of competitive products. Furthermore, as far as our relationship with Nissan is concerned, they use a lot of our products and printers. Indeed, circular economy, which is the topic of the day, they're using renewable printers. And also with regard to sales and marketing, vehicles are essential. So Nissan EV and vehicles, we use them to sell and market our products. And as far as our Scope 1 product, our activities are concerned, 40% is in relation to CO2 emission. It's important that we eliminate that. We need to make a transition to the EV. This is essential. So that being the case going forward, we'd like to work together with Nissan. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Ms. Sato. Next, we'd like to invite Robert. Can you state your name and also talk about your activities in relation to sustainability? Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be with you. My name is Robert Metzger and I lead sustainability at Philips. I'm Senior Vice President. I have a background in physics and I've held many different positions in innovation and strategy in our company. Now, you may know Philips is one of the leading health technology providers in the world. And the healthcare industry in itself is very polluting and not accessible to half of mankind. So as part of our purpose to improve 3.5 billion people's lives by 2030, we really believe that we can make a difference in working with the leading hospitals around the globe to make healthcare both accessible and much more sustainable. Today, the healthcare industry is emitting more CO2 than aviation and shipping lines together. We have been the first health technology company in the world to have been adopting science-based targets for Scope 1, 2, and 3 since 2000. We operate carbon neutrally globally. Last year, 18% of our revenues came from circular solutions and products. That will be close to 25 by the end of 2025. So we believe very much that circularity is one of the key methods to also reduce the global carbon emissions and indeed operate within the planetary boundary conditions.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to invite Pia to take the floor. Your name and can you talk about your activities at this moment? Pia, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Really happy to be here. My name is Pia Heidenmark Cook, and I'm a senior advisor at Teneo. I used to be Chief Sustainability Officer at IKEA, and since leaving IKEA 2 years ago, I sit on the board of directors of companies across healthcare, retail, restaurants, and sustainable materials across North America and Europe. And I worked with IKEA on circularity, where we tested circular hubs in all our stores, which was innovation or design center for customers to learn about circularity and how to take care of products and extend the life of products. We had take back services so people could take back their old furniture, and we were also testing secondhand sales both online and in the stores, and also had, of course, a democratic design, which was an important part where we included sustainability and circularity at the beginning of the process when we designed the products. And also working now at Decathlon, which is sports retailer, where there's also a lot of take back, encouraging take back of sports articles, and also a lot of secondhand products being sold. So I continue to work with circularity also since leaving IKEA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then let us begin the panel discussion. Mr. Tagawa, you've already spoken, so I think introduction of Mr. Tagawa is not necessary. So the first topic is why circular economy? Why is circular economy very important? I think we need to go back to this point. Why is circular economy so important? Now, those of you who are joining us in this discussion, you may feel that the challenge to circular economy, you might be questioning whether or not this is really important or whether or not this is really viable. I'm sure you have questions about the probability of circular economy. Not all of you are properly convinced about the viability of circular economy. Why is this necessary? So that's what we want to start with at this panel discussion. So Pia, I'd like to begin with the question to you. Pia, you also, in your self-introduction, you mentioned that you were with IKEA until 2 years ago. And you led ambitious initiatives towards circularity and developed circular business models, including take-back offers. So you were one of the companies that was first very aware of the importance of circularity. So you focused on circularity in the beginning. But what kind of sense of urgency and awareness of the issues do you have? What
Thank you.
led you to focus on circularity ahead of the others? I would appreciate this. I would appreciate your comments on this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think one of the main reasons why IKEA was early was because we set climate targets very early, and circularity is one key way of achieving your carbon goals or your climate goals. And that is especially for producing companies like IKEA being a large home furnishing retailer, where about 70% of the carbon footprint comes from the material and the production of the products. So without really reflecting on how you design, how you use the products, and how you take them back, and how you recycle at the end, we could not achieve our carbon goals and our climate goals. So I think that was one of the main drivers, understanding that 70% of the footprint actually came from the supply chain and the products. So that was the first reason. The second, being a European or Swedish-based company, there's been a lot of legislation in the area. I mean, even more now today, but also 5-7 years doing more circular activities in the company. And then the third one is that a lot of our customers, especially in Belgium and Netherlands, where we started a lot of the initiatives, there was a big demand from customers where they wanted secondhand products. They wanted to be able to return the products. One of the biggest obstacles to buying a new mattress, for example, was not knowing what to do with the old one. So also from a pure commercial point of view, we could see that offering take-back services made sense. And then, of course, from a sustainability point of view, it made a lot of sense because you want to make sure that the products live as long as ever possible to reduce the footprint per product. So there were mainly three reasons. One was materiality, understanding the importance of circularity to achieve our sustainability goals. Second, legislation, existing but also coming legislation. And third, customer demands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very straightforward and very clear. Thank you so much. I would like to ask Pia further. So you said the various reasons, for example, regulation, customer demands. Were you able to gain understanding internally? How did you convince people internally? Were you people inside the company? I'm sure they resist this plan. How did you gain and convince people inside the company? Were you able to gain understanding at a very early age, or at a very early time? Thank you.
I mean, it's an ongoing journey. I mean, I haven't been in IKEA for 2 years now, but I know that they are still working on developing new circular offers and new circular solutions. And I think it's the same in every company, that sustainability is an ongoing journey where you learn, and it's about change management. And one of the key drivers in change management is, of course, education and awareness, understanding why you need to change and what the journey and the roadmap in that change looks like. So education awareness is a key. Another key part is success. So doing initiatives, doing activities or projects, and proving that they actually work. And not only the small ones, but of course a lot of small projects, so that you can kind of fail fast and fail not too costly, but also bigger ones. And with time, when you see that customers want it, employees are really proud, you see that the payback is actually not so bad that you maybe thought from the beginning, then you start to see that this actually makes sense to do. And then it becomes much easier to do the bigger projects that are more extensive. But I would still say that it's an ongoing journey within IKEA and within most of the companies where I work, because it is a new business model. It's a new way of making money and a new way of interacting with customers. So or interacting with suppliers, if you look more at the design and product design phase. So it's not an easy, quick fix, but it is a fundamental change in looking at how we organize our business and how we do business.
Thank you so much. So I think even leading companies need to continue to tackle change. So I'm encouraged that this is an ongoing journey, even for leading companies. Then I'd like to ask Ms. Sato now. Now at Nikko, you have already tackled the government procurement standards. You have because one of the companies that have been very advanced in relation to the various activities. Now I understand that you have many dealings with different stakeholders, not just investors. But what are some of the challenges that your stakeholders share? You can follow the challenges that Ms. Pia talked about. What are some of the challenges pertaining to the circular economy based on your very extensive engagement with different stakeholders? What are your thoughts? Okay, thank you. Let me focus on why circular economy. First, I have a slide about the ESG management targets from fiscal 2020. So let me talk about this. So how do we address sustainability from the circular economy? Yes, over the short term, this may seem as a cost increasing element. Well, of course, over the medium to long term, this should be seen as an advanced investment to gauge and to secure long-term profitability of the medium to long term. So we call this as future finances. Companies need to see requirements for circularity as a business opportunity. So it's important that we translate this as into opportunity to gain positive impact on financial performance in 3 to 10 years' time. And also, as far as our business is concerned, we are involved in B2B, namely business to business. That is the bulk of our transaction. So when it comes to business, government procurement and transactions with various large companies, we're required to address sustainability at an early phase. And we find that the standards that are being required are becoming higher. It's no longer just about economy. We also have to address society as part of the ESG. So the requirements are becoming much more complicated these days. So unless you address these issues early on, then our product will not be chosen by customers. So yes, we're talking about opportunity as well as crisis. So it is important that we take action now. That is important. That's the sense. That is the message we send to various stakeholders. Now, when we announced and published our CE report, because we were very rare as a company, and also circular economy has become very popular only after the term decarbonization, and many companies. Many people in the municipalities and companies have said that they hear the term circular economy, but they don't know what to do. We receive various inquiries from various people in many different municipalities and companies. But unlike decarbonization, you have no common goal set by IPCC like you do in the field of decarbonization. So many people in these companies and municipalities don't know what indicators they should follow. They don't know what to do. Also, this was covered by Pia-san earlier. If we pursue sustainability, there's also a sense of resistance internally because there's the issue of increasing costs and its compatibility with economic rationality. So how did RICO pursue this? These are some of the frequently asked questions from our stakeholders. So against that backdrop, as is we respond to various issues as we covered in our circular economy report. Now please take a look at this. This goes back to 1994, and RICO established a concept called Comet Circle as a concept for realizing circular economy. The circle shows partners to realize the circular economy, and the arrows show the process. And because this looks like a comet, that is how we use the term comet circle. So from the top circle, these are new materials that are extracted from the earth. You go through the upper arrow and then conveyed to customers as a product. We have, during the mass production and mass consumption era, the finished products and wastes are now follow the arrow on the bottom, and they are put into the reclaimed land. But now, these days, we have a lot of leased products. So these products come back to us. So optimal processing of products that return to us is required. But should we really avoid recycling of products? So 30 years ago, very early on, we faced this question. We want to make sure that we could use the arrow on the top, be able to recycle the products. If they cannot be recycled as products, we should recycle them as parts. If they cannot be recycled and reused as parts, then they should be reused as materials. So this is a circle which we have been operating very early on. I see. Thank you very much. When we take a look at the materials, be it decarbonization, be it circular economy, I think you talked about the relevance of disclosure. It's important that you share disclose the information, not just to say yes, not as an excuse, but you should be disclosing the information to actually show that you're committed. So I really sense that this is a very sincere effort on your part to disclose your activities. Next, I'd like to ask Robert. Robert, earlier you mentioned that Philips is committed to circular business. You have many products that contribute to this. 18% of the products contribute to this. And you want to improve this up to 25% by 2025. So in your core business, you have various initiatives that are related to sustainability. So what I want to ask is that you have different business units. The commitment we get the very intense commitment on the part of the business units at Philips. So each business unit seems to be strongly committed to this. Now, this is a question similar to the question that I asked the two panelists. How did you convince the business units to be committed to products that lead to circular economy? The fact that the different business units are cooperating with increased rate of circular product. So how relevant was circular economy for each of the business units? How did you convince each of the business units? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Maybe Pia and the previous panelists have already commented on the various stakeholder perspectives in a very comprehensive way. I think if you want to help people to change the way how they do business or how they look at their responsibilities, it really starts with understanding why. Right. So, and as Pia already pointed out, the customers are changing their requests. The regulators are stepping up. There's an increasing pressure to disclose things, but most fundamentally, I think it is also to understand it makes business sense. There's a logic. I would argue circularity and climate action are precondition for any successful business. Business cannot be successful if society fails, and if our environmental conditions collapse. And we know that we have been digging up more than 100 gigatons of raw materials as mankind per year in the last years, with an increasing rate, and less than 10% of that is recycled. So we are running out as mankind out on a lot of critical materials. So if you want to be successful as any business, you need to find ways to create value for your customers with less waste and less materials. And I think that is a very strong logic. On that basis, we engage with our business leaders and with the strategists to say, okay, how can we achieve that? And the slide that you see here on the side, I think gives a couple of building elements that we use in our circular efforts. So of course, it starts with understanding, do we need material at all? What can we digitalize? How can we provide services without material? The second element is, if we use materials, how can we move away from virgin materials and use recycled materials or materials that are much easier to bring in these recycling loops? And there were some great examples from IKEA, from Nissan, and also from Ricoh. So material choices is very important. But then also the entire design is critical. So can you design in a modular way so that you can easily replace components, repair components, design for repairability and serviceability? That are critical elements. Think about platforms where you can swap components and maintain the frame of a huge medical scanner, for instance, for many years in hospitals, while changing components like cameras, detectors, upgrade softwares. And the last element of that is business models. So moving away from selling equipment to really offering integrated services. And I think all of this is the core part of our strategy, and it helps us to really engage with the businesses and get them along. So maybe let me summarize. I think if you want to change the behavior of business leaders and experts in your company, you need to have a very clear storyline and narrative that starts with the why. You need to empower leaders, formal and informal leaders, to take action. You need to build capabilities and really train them, for instance, on eco-design, life cycle assessment, and understanding the impact of their consequences. And you need to embed this in processes. So in every stage gate of a product design process, you need to have targets, you need to align the incentives, you need to align the performance management cadence, and that is what we have done.
Thank you very much. Indeed, you have cited very important keywords. It's important that if the society as a whole fails, business alone cannot be successful. That's very important. That's a very important keyword. If the whole society collapses, businesses cannot be successful. So now some people are convinced early on, but some people take a lot of time to be convinced. So, be it management, you need to organize a different narrative to convince different leaders. So you're working for the society and you're also working for the business. I think there's a compatibility between the two. That is the impression that I have from your comment. And also, I believe technology played a very important part. That is my impression. Without material, some elements can be covered with evolution in technology and digital. And I guess that you have a very deep felt discussion internally. Now, Robert, for the members of the audience who are taking part, they're all interested in circular economy. They want to contribute. They want to know what type of products and services that can contribute to circularity. Can you cite concrete examples of products and services that contribute to circularity? For example, do you have products and solutions that contribute to circularity from Philips? Can you cite representative products, please? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So let me just start my answer with saying circularity is not a product property. It's a system property. So you can design products in such a way that they are ready to become an element of the circular economy, but you also need the right business models, you need reverse logistic processes, you need to work together with partners. And that is different from energy efficiency. You can design the product to be very energy efficient, but you cannot design the product itself to be circular, but you can enable it to become part of the circular economy. So that's important to understand. What we have done, to give you concrete examples, over the last couple of years, we have invested hundreds of millions to build refurbishment facilities. So we really want to preserve the value of our products by not breaking them down to material and just reuse the steel and the copper in the wires, but really use what we call higher R strategies. So refurbishment, remanufacturing, reuse, that is very important. That means we have trained our field service engineers to do that. We have designed our machines in a different way. We have designed completely new concepts and technologies. One example of that is, for instance, if you use these huge scanners, MR, magnetic resonance scanners for imaging in hospitals, you have seen these. They weigh many tons and they use thousands of liters of helium to cool these superconducting magnets. We have developed a technology that basically allows you to operate a scanner without additional helium. So we have reduced the entire amount of helium to 7 liters instead of 3,500 liters, and closed this cooling system. Helium is a very scarce resource. I think that's an excellent example for eco-design and something that reduces the amount of resources that you need. And it's a fundamental breakthrough in technology, which is much appreciated by the customers in our market. On the consumer side of things, you know that Avent, the baby brand, is part of our Philips company. So, for instance, we have developed a way where consumers can rent breast pumps rather than buying them. So also enabling different business models to reuse valuable equipment rather than selling it and then losing sight of it, where it just gets used a couple of times and then vanishes somewhere in the cupboard. I think all these are important steps to not just design the products in a different way, but also to work with the customer in a different way.
Thank you very much. You talked about very concrete examples. There's so much that we'd like to learn from your company and from you. Thank you so much for sharing that example. Now, I would like to ask Tagawa-san, Mr. Tagawa. As was explained earlier, Nissan has been working to substitute materials that do not rely on newly mined resources. You have come up with various strategies. So you talked about you're now doing used batteries and recycled products in Namie, Fukushima Prefecture. So I think your activities are indeed very advanced in this regard. So as it is you, Mr. Tagawa, I would like to ask a question. I would like to be very candid with you. I was going to ask this question to you, Mr. Tagawa, actually. Now, Nissan's initiatives try to go beyond the customer demand vis-a-vis cars. I'm sure that the customers don't come to dealers for various requirements. I think you're trying to go beyond the customer demand. So why is it that that's what I was going to ask. Why would they go beyond the customer requirements and customer demand? But having listened to Pia and Robert's comments, actually, the customers are making demands these days. So my assumption has changed. I thought there's a difference in the markets of different countries. Actually, our customers do you see concrete demands for circular economy in the Japanese market? Or are you saying that you want to go, although there aren't demand, you want to go ahead of the demand? Is that the case?
Thank you for the question. True. For example, say there's a buyer of a vehicle. Nissan in Namie is recycling batteries. So let's use Nissan battery. Do they do that? Or Nissan's car's material is recycled, so I won't pick Toyota, but rather choose Nissan. I don't think so many purchasers are making choice that way. But take a look at the automotive sector, or not just the automotive sector, but what are the challenges we are facing when you manufacture a car? So many types of material is used. It's not just steel and aluminum. We use other materials. We use a lot of water. And true that in some countries, the population has saturated in some countries. But according to the current forecast, demand for cars will continue to grow. And the number of owned cars and the number of vehicles sold will continue to grow. Can we continue to depend on resources in manufacturing cars? Either the cost will become prohibitive or we will end up not being able to make cars. So when we face the customers right now, are they making choices by all the way thinking about the circular economy? Maybe not so. But for companies that are paying attention to circular economy, they will probably be funded by institutional investors, and our NAMIA activities are well appreciated by the general public too. Tesla's EV, yes, they're doing well in terms of their sales, but when we launched EVs in 2010, battery reuse, secondary use, Nissan's battery is the highest in terms of the number of batteries that are put to reuse. So this is what we could do with Nissan's battery for reuse. It's not just one-time use as battery. We can repurpose the battery like the railway crossing or for disaster risk reduction or for an electricity power company, maybe they can use that as a storage battery or reuse that in the grid. So if such technique is proven, a Chinese company that has just begun to sell EVs or some emerging manufacturers are not really thinking that far to recycling. But if Nissan takes the lead, maybe we can also invite new ideas. So the automotive sector has been for 100 years making cars, but now with electrification and connected cars, yes, it is a threat for us to see these new companies, new entrants. We use motors, but Nihon Densan Nidec is a Japanese company that's #1 in the world in motors, or Honda and Sony getting together. That may be a threat, a competition, but that would also bring about new ideas, even for circular economy. Hanyuda-san, you talked about linear economy, and we continued with that concept for the past century, but we can't survive unless we depart from linear economy, or we may not be able to continue to manufacture cars unless we depart from that kind of concept. That's the sense of crisis we have. So we're not doing what we are doing just because we wanted to be appreciated by the outside organizations, but for us to survive in the automotive sector, it's a must.
Thank you. That is so convincing. Of course, Nissan is the front runner in this area. That is why you probably face various issues such as return of the batteries. So you need to do something in practical terms. So there's a sense of urgency in terms of practical operation. So that is why you are here. So let me further ask you to elaborate. Let me ask the following question to you, Mr. Tagawa. Now, the management team, when there are new words, the management team becomes very wary. So decarbonization has appeared as a keyword in relation to regulations, but they're not able to fully respond to decarbonization. But now you have a new word, circular economy, that is emerging on the horizons. Yes, there might be overlaps between the two. But the companies are struggling just with decarbonization. If they're asked to address circular economy, it would be too much for them. So you probably had such discussions among the management. What is the sense of the management?
Circular economy, it's not just about circular economy, but in decarbonization, short-term cost is of course, is discussed. Robert and Pia have also mentioned that there is constantly internal debate within the company. And of course, that's a topic that's often discussed, naturally. But using what's been recycled may be cheaper than what we create anew, or it becomes more accessible. And that's a proven concept in the midterm. We're going to see more of those examples, like rare materials or rare metals. If we're going to continue to newly extract from the reserves, it will be exploited one day and it will be exhausted. So we have to use the rare material over and over again, or else we engage in global business all around the world. So we are constantly worried. Maybe one day we will wake up and find that we can no longer manufacture the car. So decarbonization, circular economy. So there's no one in the top management who is negative. But I'm going to spend 10 billion yen. Return in 3 years' time will be so many percent. Of course, then we have to use a certain yardstick to decide whether we do that investment or not. But that applies for any investment project. It's not just about circularity or decarbonization. Are we going to come up with this new model? We've experienced that over and over again. It takes us so many years to recover the investment for this new model. So it's upon the top management to take all those factors into consideration and make a judgment.
That is so convincing. You have really brought about change in the society based on your internal discussion within the company. So get your sense of passion and the journey so far. That comes through in your comments. Thank you so much, Mr. Tagawa. So we have already spent half of the time for panel discussion and talked about why it is important to make a transition, why circular economy is so important. So in the second half of the discussion, I would like to ask your sense of challenges in delivering circular economy, which you have experienced, because you are indeed the pioneers in this area. So if you could share with us your challenges and also some ideas about possibly overcoming those challenges. I would appreciate your insight into possible actions that could be taken. So let me start with Mr. Tagawa. So Mr. Tagawa, I'm going to ask this question without any hesitation because you are on the panel. There was one thing that I really wanted to ask from the beginning. Now, as you pursue electrification, I think circularity becomes more challenging as you pursue electrification because the number of parts you use and the use of bare metals and rare metals increase as a result of pursuit of EV. So if it's a choice between EV and circularity, how do you address the challenge? Aren't there a conflict between the different goals? If it's very challenging, please tell us. How do you try to overcome these different challenges that you see? Thank you.
Of course, it's difficult, no doubt about that. So, EVs, the actual number of components is lower than ICE cars, internal combustion engines. As you say, rare metals or the kind of materials that have not been used in internal combustion vehicles or something that is produced only in limited geographical areas or material that can be refined in certain geographical areas, that's becoming challenges. But we've been creating engines for 100 years. And we have the expertise for recycling those internal combustion engines. We have ideas. We have taken stock of those ideas. So suddenly we see the acceleration of electrification and EVs. So be it batteries, there was a nickel battery, and then we saw the lithium-ion and all-solid-state battery or LFP, a slightly less expensive battery is attracting attention, but the material used and the manufacturing methodologies are slightly different. So recycling or actually extraction or reuse, we haven't come up with such technology. So in that sense, extremely challenging. Yes, that's true. But with time passing, electrification is indispensable. Thinking about global warming, no one questions the truth of that. Then that means all the wisdom, not just in the automotive sector, but from other sectors, will be collected for recycling and for use in EVs. One Japanese newspaper put up an article today. For example, if the harness, one unit, long distance, harness is used for long distance, 3 kilometers. Unfortunately, it's not about Nissan, but one company was able to shorten that to 1/30th, 100 meters. Unfortunately, it's not about Nissan, but through recycling or through such technological breakthrough, the amount of material used can be reduced. We want to do something like that, and we will be doing something like that. And secondary use of batteries. In motors, rare metals are used, but the quantity of rare metals has been reduced by 85%. Cobalt is used in batteries, but we may be able to come up with cobalt-free batteries. And in fact, we're beginning to see the realization of such innovation. Nissan will do that. Our industry will do that. And as I said, the new entrants, we will work with these new entrants, and surely we will find a solution. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be harsh, but it's something that we need to do.
Thank you very much for that insight. Now, on a related note, I would like to ask a question to Robert. You heard Mr. Tagawa talked about issues that need to be addressed within the industry, and so they need to change all the way from the design phase. Robert, earlier you talked about some of the initiatives you were undertaking within your company at Philips. Now, with regard to Europe, eco-design concept has really taken root, and the Japanese government is very interested in the eco-design concept, which is being promoted by the EU. So be it product or be it system, you want to enhance circularity from the design phase. It's important that you involve your stakeholders, such as vendors. How do you create a relationship based on cooperation between different stakeholders, such as vendors? In the case of Philips, you involve the PACE platform for accelerating the circular economy. You're very much involved in the launch of the PACE. So how do you involve cooperation? How do you create cooperation within the industry? Can you talk about how you built cooperation with different stakeholders and also the sense of challenge that you face as well? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And maybe going back to the comments of Mr. Tagawa on innovation, I think when you look at companies, they have perfected often the way how they innovate technologies and products. But that is not good enough if we really want to advance and accelerate circularity, because we need to innovate at a broader scale. I think the challenges that we see are the engine that enable and drive new innovation. Right? But we need to innovate not just at a technology level, but we need to innovate how we deliver technology to the customers, how we provide services, how we return products, how we finance these things. And this is something that you cannot do at the company level alone. That was one of the reasons why we have contributed to PACE over the last years. We are one of the founding partners, so to say, together with the World Economic Forum, the World Resource Institute, and many others. IKEA is part of the club. I think the Japanese government was involved from the very beginning, as were the Danish and the Dutch government, for instance. There are more than 100 companies. One of the things that PACE has done is define very clear action agendas around these challenges and sharing best practice. And I think that is a fantastic platform where you can learn from each other, so that you do not have to reinvent the wheel at every different company again.
Thank you very much for that.
So if you want to, let me just say, if you want to find out more and have a look at PACE Circular, you can look it up on the internet, PACE Circular. You will find the action agendas and the new strategic focus. And please do join. I found it a very useful platform. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Indeed, of course, companies that lead the industry is in a very difficult position. You have to, of course, compete. You have competition in the marketplace because you're a business. But on the other hand, I think, Robert, you have been very consistent in your remarks. If the industry is failing, then your company cannot be successful in the face of the failure in the industry. So even if you're successful at this moment, you might be able to rely on the same system a few years down the road. So everybody will fail if that is the case. So it's very important that platform-related initiative is very important. And I think Japanese companies should cross borders and take leadership across different borders. And that enterprise value of such companies will increase as a result. Thank you very much for that input. Now, a question to Ms. Sato. Earlier, you mentioned your very innovative activities pertaining to disclosure of information. When Japanese companies talk about circular business, now, those of you on the panel today, you understand the relevance of these initiatives. You understand the potential impact on your future finance. But many business persons see these initiatives as a cost. They see this as cost. So it's important. You need to communicate to the people that this is not a cost, but an opportunity. So what are some of the challenges when you try to convince various people that this is indeed not a cost, but a opportunity? What type of materials are necessary to convince these people that this is an opportunity and not a cost? Ms. Sato, please. Thank you. I would like to introduce an example of our own company. But before I do that, I would like to talk about our goals with regard to energy saving. So let me introduce this this slide, please. So we have set targets. We want to make sure that we reduce, based on the concept that we need to reduce the input. We want to make sure that the material input be reduced to 1/8. So we have set a use of target pertaining to use of new materials. Of course, when we use new materials, we need to come up with design, reuse, materiality, recycle. This is very important. Now, against that backdrop, in 2023, our company produced A3 color multifunctional printers. And what we did was to use so-called post-consumer plastic materials for more than 50%. This is the product which we produced. I would like to show you the slide to introduce this product. Please show the slide. Yes. Yes, this is it. This is the A3 full color multi-functional printer. We have 7 different models. In 1 minute, A4 could be produced up until 20 to 40. Now, as I mentioned earlier, what we do is to introduce 50% of so-called post-consumer plastic material. And please turn to the next page. We have also introduced several different functions that are environmental friendly. But again, we use 50% of post-consumer plastic material in these products. And let me talk about some of the story behind how we were able to successfully introduce 50% of such post-consumer plastic materials. Now, of course, there are cases where renewed materials are less expensive. But when you take a look at in the case of these multicolored A3 multifunction printers, using virgin materials is more expensive compared to using recycled. So if you want to introduce post-consumers, if you introduce 5%, that's as far as you can see, because this will lead to increase in cost. So that being the case, yes, it is used to a certain extent. So the price of recycled plastic is higher than compared to virgin plastic. But if you set a very high target for the introduction of this new type of materials, then you need a breakthrough to be able to do that. So what we wanted to do was set a higher target for introduction of post-consumer plastic materials. But then members of the business unit complained that this would lead to increase in cost. So even if you have a target of 50%, it means the cost is tenfold. So therefore, the relevant business units were very resistant against this target. Now, at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, there's the ESG of trend. If we address circular economy right now, that this could have positive impact for finances later down the road. So the decision to introduce this target was made top down. Now, in one single printer, if you introduce about 50% post-consumer plastic materials, then in terms of quality and in terms of the coloring, this leads to various challenges pertaining to the functionality and the coloring. So therefore, we set up a cross-functional team to address these challenges. We set up a cross-functional working team to address such challenges. So not only design but we also introduced procurement, marketing, and also QA-related departments, and also ESG departments. We were all involved from the stage of engineering and development, and then addressed each of the challenges that emerged step by step. As I mentioned earlier, there is the issue of increasing cost. If you introduce more than 50% of the post-consumer plastic, you cannot say that just because we have such environmentally friendly materials, we are asking to pass on the price to the customers. We cannot do that. So we need to reduce cost of other materials. So more that we cut cost in other areas. So the development of post-consumer plastic materials we need to make sure that they're cost competitive to other conventional technique. And we were successful in doing that. We were able to contain the cost of in development cost consumer plastic materials. This was a very important success factor for this challenge. This was very meaningful and significant. Now, this is one good example of this effort. Now, we were aware that the possibilities for transactions and negotiations about such products will increase. And actually, the fact that we had this product was very positive for various transactions. There's reference to carbon footprint on the right-hand side of the chart. If you use recycled materials, if you use biomaterials, then you'll be able to reduce CO2. So therefore, compared to the previous models, over the life cycle, we were able to reduce the carbon footprint by more than 27% compared to the previous products. Earlier, we talked about the eco-design regulations in the EU that is not being considered. Now, CFP disclosure is going to be required against the backdrop. And also, even in Japanese green law, carbon footprint disclosure is going to be required. That is now the discussion taking place. So in the case of multifunctional printers, this is also part of this issue. And from next year onwards, we need to disclose carbon footprint for this product. And also with regard to, we felt that the inquiries pertaining to the circular economy was not increasing, but that is not the case. Such inquiries began to increase. So I think we now have a case whereby the trend in the community and marketplace is very much consistent with what we're doing. So this is a very good example. Thank you so much. You said that your company made a tough decision to adopt this post-consumer plastic materials. And in order to overcome various challenges, to overcome that, you set up cross-functional teams. So you tried to make sure that, I think Rico's commitment was very strong that you really wanted to address this topic. As members of the working team, they're not just part of design and design phase. As Robert mentioned, innovation doesn't come from engineering and innovation. It's about marketing and sales. In the case of Robert, you talked about financing. So it's important the business as a whole address these issues. So that was a very easy to understand example. Thank you so much for that. Now, next a question to Pia. Pia Teneo, in your company, I'm sure that you mentioned that recycling is not the answer. You frequently say that recycling is not the answer. Recycling is not the answer. I really identify with your comment. I think this is very essential to the circular economy. So let me ask this question to Pia. It is not a journey to reduce the it is not a journey to introduce circularity ratio. I think mass input is not the answer. If we are to create a truly sustainable society, I think you need to reduce the amount of resource input. That represents a major challenge in my view. So if that is the case, it's important that you not undermine well-being and economy, but at the same time make this compatible with reduction of resource input. What is necessary to make this compatible? I would appreciate your insight and advice. How can we address circularity ratio? How can we reduce correction? How can we reduce material input without undermining well-being? Maybe we need to involve government. Maybe we need to involve civic society. Can you share with us your advice? We should focus not just on circularity ratio. How can we reduce material input? I would appreciate your thoughts. Thank you. Pia, please.
Thank you. It's a very big and difficult question. I think that there's different phases in this where, like Robert said, circularity is fundamentally systems thinking, where we need to think about, in a company's perspective, how we design products, how we interact with customers around the product, and how we take care of the product afterwards. But that involves also the regulatory framework enabling us to do this, where, for example, at IKEA, when we wanted to take back plastics from our logistics units, so not plastic products sold to customers, but just from the transport, we had to register as a waste company because we couldn't handle the waste in our stores. if we were not registered as a waste company. And then yes, bringing that up to the EU and sharing this example, they were of course not aware of the kind of unintended consequences of something that was a good intention from the beginning. So having the dialogue between the different stakeholders, and then of course with customers, even if we did see across the globe, so not just in Scandinavia, but across the globe, we saw a big interest from customers when it came to secondhand, when it came to renting and leasing. So the need for ownership is changing across the globe. People want access to the function of the product rather than having to own the product. It depends on products, of course, but overall there's a trend. But having said that, consumers still want it to be easy. They want it at the same price. They want the same quality. And then they want it sustainable. So they're not willing really to give up something or all the other good criteria just to feel like they're sustainable and doing something good. So you need to make it easy. And I think if it's for Nissan or if it's for Philips or if it's for IKEA, you can't produce products that are worse than the old ones and then just put a green label and say this is better for the planet, because they need to be better. And I think that's where the innovation and the creativity comes in. We need to really think, how do we make everything that we produce and the model we're in better? And that's kind of here and now. But then, of course, I fully agree with you regarding mass production, mass consumption, and mass waste. And that is a big societal systems fault that we're in, where we created the business and the economy based on the knowledge we had 200 years ago. And we're still measuring GDP in a way that fit in the old system, but not with the knowledge we have today. We are measuring profits in companies based on what we knew, rather than maybe a circular model where the income streams would look different. I'm not saying less, but different than the model that we have today. And consumers, with marketing, we're used to always having the latest and the newest, because that's how we show that we're kind of cool and in and are successful. So there's a lot of things we can do here and now. And I think we are doing here and now through government with legislation, through companies with circular products and different activities, and with consumers testing it. But I also do think that there is something bigger where we really need PACE, the platform of PACE, but also government interaction with companies, World Economic Forum, kind of bigger forums where we start to really reflect on how do we tax things, how do we promote the activities of companies, and how do we really interact with citizens and consumers. So this is kind of a bigger thing that we really need to solve with the knowledge that we have today that we didn't have 200 years ago when we started the Industrial Revolution.
Thank you so much. Yes, we are now working toward a major system change. It's not just engineering and technology. We need philosophy. We need thinking. We need vision. Everything needs to be reflected. Everything needs to be combined in order to address these challenges. That is the impression. Thank you for your comment. So all the panelists on stage taking part in this discussion today are leaders in this field. You have such wide, extensive knowledge, know-how, and wisdom. I really get the sense that we are indeed changing. I'm afraid my time management was poor. We are now at the end of the session. So I would like to invite each panelist to share with us very briefly, in several dozens of less than a minute. Can you talk about your thoughts about impressions pertaining to circular economy? If you have a message to the members who are listening in, I would appreciate that. So we'd like to have a last wrap-up comment from each of the panelists. So let's start with Sato-san. Sato-san, if you would like to give us your final message. Thank you. Thank you, Robert, Pia, Mr. Tagawa, and Mr. Hanyuda. I have learned and I've taken away a major message from my other panelists. Now I was going to talk about something that I was going to share with you toward the closing of the session. In a seminar which has been hosted by Nissan in this manner, you have heard various messages. The fact that you're able to deliver the message to a very wide audience, this is going to be very important if we are to realize the society which Pia has talked about. So this is a sense of education. It is a matter of gaining understanding and also people identifying with these views. I think this type of forum is very important to engender such understanding. As far as we're concerned, we hope that we'll be able to encourage customers to choose these type of products. It's important that we deliver such values to our customers through our products. Earlier, I introduced about our company through the presentation. The ESG is about having a positive impact on financial performance. Over the short term, yes, this might seem as though it is an element that will push up cost. But over the medium to long term, this will have a positive impact on financial performance over the long term. So I hope that all of you will take actions now in one way or another. Please take action now. Thank you once again for this opportunity. Thank you. Robert, final comment, your message, please, Robert.
Yes, thank you. I would just say it is clear that circular models are strategically important for every business, regardless in which industry you're in. So you need to think about it, and you need to understand that it's not just the product property, so you need to work together with partners, with your customers, with your suppliers, with regulators to drive the change. There are plenty of great examples. We need to scale them now, so it's time for action at scale. Thank you.
Thank you. Pia, your final message, please. Pia.
Yes, thank you. Two reflections. One, it's important that we start here and now and take action while also reflecting on that there is a need for a bigger system change. So I think my main message is not to sit and wait until we have solved everything, solved the best ever legislation, the best ever product, the best ever customer interaction. We are in a test and learn phase, and then I fully agree with Robert. We also have a lot of good examples that needs to be scaled at a pace that is much faster than today. So that's one reflection. And the second one thing that has come up several times today or this afternoon is this with the language. It's a new language for a lot of managers, for a lot of leaders. First comes climate and carbon, and now comes circularity, biodiversity, water scarcity, human rights, ESG and diversity and inclusion that you're talking about. I think it's important to understand that this is the language of business in 2023 and will be even more so in the future. So yes, this is maybe not what we learned in university when we went to school 20, 30 years ago, but this is what the kids today are learning. And this is the language that we need to learn and be masters of. It's the language of business.
Thank you, Mr. Tagawa. Your comment?
We are the host, so on behalf of the host, Nissan Motor Corporation, I would like to thank Pia, Robert, and Ms. Sato for joining us. Your comments were so valuable, full of clues, and Mr. Hanyuda, your comments, in between the comments of the panelists, were very knowledge intense. Like was the case last year, I listened to the panelists. As I listened to the panelists, I was much encouraged that this planet will survive.
Thank you so much. We'd now like to end the panel discussion on the panel discussion entitled Accelerating Toward a Circular Economy from Idea to Action. Thank you so much for a valuable message. As Mr. Tagawa mentioned, I think we were able to be very positive at the end of the session. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you. I'd like to thank all the panelists for their participation. Thank you very much. With this, we'd like to conclude Sustainability Seminar 2023 Circular Economy. As Mr. Tagawa mentioned at the beginning, Nissan Sustainability Seminar DEI session is available on the website of Nissan. Please access the website. Thank you once again for your kind participation. Good day. Thank you.